Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
I believe both of our households are back to school, so unofficial summer is over.
Yes, but that is a good thing for us because, I can tell you when there's camps, my kids go to camps and things like that. But when they're just sort of lounging around the house, I feel this pressure to and maybe this is wrong, it probably is, but to entertain them or do stuff with them, which is, sounds great, except if you've got a job, that demands 8 hours a day or more, then you're pulled in multiple directions. So it's nice to have school back up. They're going to be stimulated. They're going to learn stuff. They're going to make friends, and I can get some stuff done.
Yeah, I don't feel the same pressure for me to voluntarily do things with them, but when they're around, I get asked to do things. Drive me here, make me lunch there. I'm not left alone as much, so we'll be able to be a little more productive, I think.
And I'm an introvert, and half the reason that I got into this business was that I could be left alone. I mean, we have a golden rule here in this household, and it's mind your own damn business. But that doesn't happen during the summer, Bill.
You're increasingly walls-pilled, Matt. I love it.
Sorry.
Dude, if Tim Walz saw your house, would he respect your gutters?
It would not be pretty, my friend, and I'm just hoping there's not a major downpour anytime before I can clean them out.
I literally just replaced my gutters and got a leaf guard last week, so now Tim Walz can come to my house and I will be in good stead.
I love that. Maybe that'll be his thing. You know how people send turkey carcasses to Michael Dukakis every Thanksgiving? Maybe Tim Walz can do the rounds after he retires and just look
you should do selfies with your gutters and send them to Tim Walz.
There are worse gimmicks than that, my friend. He's the everyman, so at least his image is. He's got the vibes.
So I don't know if you saw. I follow Scott Jennings more than I should. I shouldn't care about Scott Jennings, but for some reason I have a perverse fascination because he's become like the Republican fixture on the CNN pundit panels, and he clearly in his heart doesn't like Trump. He was clearly a McConnell guy.
He's from the Mitch McConnell machine.
Yeah. He's clearly more of a pragmatist Republican, and in the primaries, you can find him being pretty critical of Trump. But now that's the general, he is 95% of the time always Republican on message. Occasionally, some more objective analysis breaks out. For the most part, you see him looking to find what should be the tip of the spear partisan message, which I just find kind of irritating. And his argument last night, now that Kamala and Tim Walz agreed to do a joint interview with CNN, because Kamala had done a major interview since she got the nomination, he accused her of needing like a support buddy.
Is the line now going to be, well, why isn't she doing it by herself?
Yeah, I do think people are going to bring that up. I have great confidence in Dana and CNN to do this. I think it's incredibly weak sauce to show up with your running mate. The fact that they don't have enough confidence in her to let her sit herself, the actual top of the ticket, and do a single interview. In fact, I think the hand-wringing and the gyrations over this over the last month show a troubling lack of confidence in her political ability, which also makes you wonder as a voter, well, what kind of president would you be if this kind of a small-time decision, can we do an interview or not, what does that look like for your decision-making process, so on? So, I think Republicans are going to think it's pretty weak to show up with effectively someone to take up half the time.
But the candidate doesn't have confidence in her to do an interview by herself, which I thought was just such a disingenuous talking point, because it is pretty common for your first interview after naming a running mate to do a joint interview. And just that happened 3 weeks ago. They had the convention. Now they're doing it. Number one, when Trump did that with Vance, they went to Jesse Waters, hardly a sign of confidence that you can handle tough questioning. If you want, the support buddy in that scenario is Jesse Waters, not even J.D. Vance. And number three, I think Republicans are just jealous that Tim Walz is a fantastic wingman. There is sort of a natural approach for the Republicans to go by the Democrats' strength. They see a strength of the Democrats, they try to flip it and make it a weakness. And they threw a lot at Tim Walz over the past month that, according to polling, is not stuck. His favorables are quite good in this polarized environment. And I think they do well together as a team. So so that was my gut reaction to Scott Jennings doing that, was that they are unhappy that they got a good team and that Trump and Vance can't pull off the same buddy act.
Well, look, I mean, obviously I know Scott, and he's got a tough gig, and I really sympathize with him because I did some of that for CNN for 3 or 4 years. I never got to the level he's at, where he was like literally prime time during the conventions, but I did a ton of TV hits for CNN, and you're in this sort of unenviable position. For one thing, you're outnumbered, and if you never defend Trump, then why are you there as the conservative? Trump has sort of created this scenario where, like, ostensibly you're there to defend the Republican nominee if you are the token conservative. So why would you be there if you're not going to defend him? But to defend him is usually to defend the indefensible. So it's a tough gig, and there have been many people, Jeffrey Lord, a lot of people have come before him, and they couldn't walk that line, and he has been able to stay employed and mostly be liked, I think, which is very important. So it's a tough gig, but to your point, Bill, JD Vance is not good at this, and Tim Walz is, and so clearly, when it comes to running mates, Walz is a lot more helpful than JD Vance. I was just thinking, when you're saying wingman, I was imagining, like, say you're young and single and you're out on the town. JD Vance would totally mess it up. You would go up and start talking to some girls, and he would like say the wrong thing and offend them, and you get a drink thrown in your face, and it would be like, it's like The Office. It's that level of cringe where, like, I don't know. It's just uncomfortable.
What's fascinating is Republicans have tried so hard literally for the last 3.5 years to make Kamala be associated with cringe. Like, that was their play on her. And they've now made Trump picked the cringiest possible running mate, and Kamala did the exact opposite. And Kamala herself is behaving very comfortably, granted in scripted environments. So this will be a different test for her. But I don't think, and Democrats did a better job, even out of the box, taking a meme that was defined as cringe, the whole coconut tree thing, and make it something that they poke fun about themselves, and turns out they embrace. I just have to think that Republicans have to be very disoriented that the things that they've done that they thought were easy plays aren't sticking the way they thought they were going to stick.
So I'm not sure. Fair points, all, but I'm not sure that this interview is going to be great. What I thought Kamala Harris should do. I like the teaming up and having Walz with her, but would be, rather than kind of building this up as a primetime network or CNN special with Dana Bash, just start doing some interviews with local outlets and stuff, and teaming up and doing that. This is going to be, I don't know how long it's going to be. However long, it's probably going to be too long. I think shorter would be good. That's part of the reason I like the local angle. Sit down with them for 20 minutes, a half hour. I think this is a little risky. Everything's going right so far. We've had 4 or 5 weeks of Kamala momentum, and this will be a big test. I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to be a disaster, but I'm not sure it's going to be like they're going to stick the landing the way they ought to.
I mean, we can't know till we see it. But I think that Republicans have done a poor job of expectation setting here. I'm kind of fascinated that when we talk about how bad Kamala is at interviews, it always comes back to one interview, the Lester Holt interview, where she gave a far too glib and unsatisfying answer to the question, "Why haven't you been to the border?" And this was a few months after becoming
the border.
What's that?
Well, the answer was, "I've been to the border."
Well, she said we've been to the border. It's sort of it's sort of a royal we.
Okay.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making. I'm not discounting the importance of the border.
And then she couldn't, but she hadn't been to the border herself. And she said, "Well, I haven't been to Europe." All these were terrible answers. No one's defending these answers. But it was a few months after she became VP. She hasn't had an interview since then, which was nearly as bad. I've seen plenty of interviews that have been just fine. So it's just sort of strange that, I mean, I grant that was like a particularly bad interview, but it's not the totality of her interviewing skills. So it would be, I don't think people should go in assuming, well, boy, she is known for being terrible interviews and has never survived one in her entire life. That's not really true. Now, she's probably going to get a lot of hardball questions in this interview, more than she's had in a while. Ones that might not have easy answers. She might be asked about flip-flopping on fracking, or are you okay with a border wall now when you weren't before because there's border wall funding in this border bill compromise? How is Joe Biden doing mentally? Were you covering something up? You know, there's stuff there that won't be fun to answer, and it's a test. But I imagine she spent a fair amount of time gaming out what will her answers be to these things. She's not going to go in totally. That's why you don't do it 24 hours after you got nominated, because you want to prep. This is an interview that requires a lot of prep.
I also wonder if CNN and Dana Bash are the right choice. It almost feels like it's a no-win. Like if she has a good night, it's like, yeah, but they feel it. It feels liberal, and
Except
these
are the debate moderators that Trump loved in June. He said they did a great job.
Hey, we'll see. I mean, again, maybe I'm nitpicking here. Maybe it'll work out great. And
but I mean, anyone you pick, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, the right would say it's someone in the tank, someone who's part of the liberal media. You'd have to go on Fox to avoid that kind of attack. I think Dana Bash is.
What about PBS? Or there's got to be.
Although that would not save them. PBS.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not talking about the brand. Obviously, is that it's liberal, but I think that there are some interviewers or journalists who have really been more down the middle. Whereas I think CNN over time has certainly kind of weighed in a little bit.
I think other mainstream media journalists. I think other mainstream media journalists respect Dana Bash. So you're not going to see the Beltway pool say this was a softball interview. You're going to see Trump partisans say that, but they would say it for pretty much anybody. This is a way. So you're starting to get a drumbeat from the Washington press corps that Kamala can't duck this sort of thing. And just as a counter to your previous point, not that I think your idea would be wrong to do local interviews, but if she did that, you would still have the Washington crew saying she's ducking us. And she is getting to a point where she is not able to drive news cycles through the unscripted events. And a local interview doesn't get the same kind of national play that a national interview does. There's certainly an argument to make that, you can say screw national altogether, just stick to local and let them whine. But I do think there's a value in having that national news cycle be favorable or at least neutral, and that was on the verge of tipping the other way because she wasn't doing these things.
So you're saying it's the attention economy, and so like she's getting all this attention when she becomes the nominee, then she gets a lot of attention when she picks walls, then she gets a lot of attention at her convention, and now there's going to be a debate. She'll get a lot of attention then, but between now and this week, the attention will come, and so it's about getting the attention and not letting Trump dominate. Every
day. I mean, there's a few things you want to do every day. Some of it is more, nuts and bolts, blocking and tackling on the ground type stuff, which is not what we see in the media. I mean, there's air war and there's ground war in a campaign. And the air war objective every day is to win that day's news cycle. And you can't be physically present every single day. You have to do some stuff behind the scenes. You have to debate prep. You have to interview prep. You have to cross the T's on your policy positions. You have to actually be vice president sometimes and probably do some governing things. There's stuff you have to do every single day. And so it's not that easy to win news cycles. Now, she got a hell of a run just by being nominated, by getting the VP pick, by doing initial stump speeches, but you need new stump speeches. You can't drive news on the same stump speech every single day. And to have something new in it requires time to think about what that new thing is. Maybe it's rolling out a new policy position. Maybe it's a new attack line. But that's the objective every single day, win a news cycle. And to do that without any media interviews for the entire campaign, that's hard to do.
And I mean, Joe Biden didn't really try this. I think his first of all, he was obviously limited by his ability, his capacity to be driving news. But I also think their strategy was, if the media is talking about Trump, we're winning, right? So Trump wanted to talk about Trump. Biden wanted to talk about Trump. But with Kamala, she wants to be the star. They want her to be a star. They want her to be exciting. That means you have to be in this attention economy, getting the attention, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to be this galvanizing, exciting figure who's not publicly present. You have to. I mean, you can't work your talent to the ground and be on the hustings every single day. So some things have to be interviews. They can't all be stump speeches. So yeah, I think that is definitely part of the equation. Now I want to get to what Trump's doing here, because we've now seen a shift in the Trump strategy. They haven't had their bearings since Kamala became the nominee. They spent some time attacking her. They spent some time attacking Tim Walz. You've seen Trump go off on some stream of consciousness stuff to try to maintain his presence in the attention economy. And now they seem to have put a lot of eggs in the RFK Tulsi basket.
Yes.
We are going to show that we have this broad coalition, this bipartisan, tripartisan coalition that is going to box out Kamala Harris. And I'm not impressed by this strategy, but I want to get your take.
Well, okay. I mean, I've got multiple takes on this. I mean, first of all, just as a conservative, it's been an interesting week or two where you see the Democratic Party kind of go out of their way to have Reagan Republicans speak at the convention and to, kind of at least have some overtures and some olive branches to Republicans. Meanwhile, our party, the Republican Party, ostensibly the conservative party, they just put out a tweet with a meme that it was Trump and Vance, and then it was Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., and Elon Musk. And basically, that's what the Republican Party is today. 4 out of 5 were Democrats as recently as a decade ago, some of them more recently. It's basically anti-vaxxers, tech bros, Twitter edgelords. It's these folks are weird, as Tim Walz might say. So that is one take. But why would Trump do it? I think he's desperate for the attention economy. He needs to halt Kamala Harris's momentum, and just as she is kind of reaching out and growing her support, he wants to demonstrate, look at these Democrats are coming into the party too, so into the Republican Party. So
I think it's more than just attention. I think they are worried that they don't have enough votes, and they need to bring in more votes. We've talked before about how Trump has this get out the vote strategy that hinges on people like Charlie Kirk and Turning Point, and Elon Musk has a group now as well. So all using amateurs, not using the traditional get out the vote strategies, not using the RNC's tried and true methods, with a philosophy of finding unreliable voters, unlikely voters, low propensity voters. And the way it was described by Charlie Kirk months ago was, let's find the MAGA people. Let's find the conservative Christians. Let's find the people who buy the Trump merch, but may not even be registered to vote. And now you're seeing that philosophy expanded to, let's find weirdo anti-vax people and other conspiracy theorists, people who think that the political medical establishments don't treat chronic disease properly. And let's try to fuse that to the MAGA coalition and essentially have a coalition of the weird.
yes.
So it's partly attention, partly tweak Democrats. I got this great Democratic name with me. And I think I mentioned on this show a while back, I thought Trump was wanted to pick Kennedy as his VP. And I still kind of think he wanted to do that. There were actually some reporting to that effect back in the spring.
RFK said that. RFK Jr. himself said that Trump's team reached out to him,
right,
and he turned them down.
Right. I think Trump wished he could have done that. I think not so much. I mean, maybe this whole notion of getting the anti-vaxxers, it wasn't as present before. I just think he was fascinated by the idea of like Kennedy on his ticket.
Keep in mind that RFK Jr. is against fracking. Keep in mind, he's called the NRA something like a terrorist organization or something to that effect. He has been very critical of the NRA. Obviously, has radical environmentalist positions, and he's done weird stuff to animals as well, right? I don't know,
possibly breaking the law.
How can he be like this environmentalist? But certainly, he's not a PETA fan. Obviously, I don't get it.
Well, no, he definitely likes killing and eating animals, which nothing inherently wrong with being a hunter. But it is weird to chainsaw a whale head, and which apparently violates several laws. And what he did with the bear is obviously super weird. So I think Trump has walked into the weird narrative that Democrats have laid out for them. And I'm not clear, and I'm certainly not. I would not expect it to work for him numerically as he expects. I don't think Kennedy has. If he was looking at the poll saying, "Oh, Kennedy gets 5 to 10% support. If I can get people to vote with me, we'll win." I think that if that's what they're actually thinking, I mean, it's a massive mystery of what those poll numbers represent. Those are not diehard anti-vaxxer Kennedy people. Some of that is just double haters using Kennedy's name as a placeholder. So I suspect they're just misreading the breadth of that constituency.
Well, again, I mean, it is weird that the Republican Party, rather than, it being Paul Ryan being there and Mitt Romney being there and maybe honoring John McCain and Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush being there, that it's Elon Musk, who took a bunch of money from Barack Obama to build up his businesses, who fathered God knows how many kids, right? One of whom,
why would Matt Lewis be against that?
One of whom is trans. But now he's now he's on the task to be against that. But when he was as father on duty, it happened. These are weird people. RFK Jr., didn't he have a diary about all of his conquests or something?
Yep.
They're not sending their best. I mean, why is it that all the bad people are leading? Kanye West is attracted now to Trump and what happened? We used to be, I know there've always been cranks and weirdos, but the mainstream of the Republican Party used to be a lot of boring establishment types and devout religious people. And now it is Roseanne Barr, man.
Well, this gets to what Trump has done to the Republican Party DNA. It's not rooted in basic conservative principles in regards to limited government, low taxes, strong military,
family values.
Certainly in Trump's personal life.
I mean, we had who was this woman, Amber Rose, who spoke at the Republican convention?
Right. I mean, if you no longer have those things as your North Stars, it's much easier to make hasty political decisions that take you in strange directions because you're not hemmed in. It's always possible to be overly hemmed in through ideology. It is, on the whole, in a two-party system, good to have a big tent because being ideological purist will probably not get you to 50%, not get you to an electoral college majority. So there's a certain pragmatism that any political party should be able to execute, but the Trump version of pragmatism is weird. He's not, the eye is not on persuading the middle of the road voter that I can apply my basic principles in a way that's not extreme and can benefit a broad swath of the country. It's just trying to stitch together weird extremist pockets of people into something that some kind of Rube Goldberg, political machine, which doesn't have an obvious through line to it beyond you should not trust the deep state. I mean, that's the glue there. There's almost no issue position that really holds this all together. It's just cynicism and paranoia.
Yeah, and some of it also might just be opportunism. I mean, if you were sort of like the 100th most popular Democrat, you're not going to get a job in the Harris administration. You're not going to get a MSNBC hosting job. But if you're the 100th most popular Democrat and you then support Donald Trump, well, now you're an opinion leader and you're, you're a major YouTuber. And if Trump wins, you might be like the Secretary of State or something.
Well, and if Trump loses, you probably still get a Fox gig or you still have a podcast. So as long as you don't want to actually run and win an elected position ever again, you can still have a career as someone who broke ranks from the establishment is now, giving you the real truth. So there is that inherent upside for those who break ranks. And look, I think there's a certain upside for Republicans who come over to Kamala Harris. They can, Adam Kinzinger has a CNN gig. They can write books. So it's not, so their careers aren't over either. But I think that there is a more cohesive argument that they're giving, which they gave at the convention. I might disagree with Kamala Harris on various issues, but maintaining our democracy is paramount. Like there's a logic to that.
And also, I would argue, look, if you were a Reagan conservative, you could argue, okay, on the abortion issue, Kamala's bad, but so is Trump.
More so now than ever, since he's now saying he's going to be the candidate for reproductive freedom.
If you're a Reagan conservative, you could argue, well, actually, the Democratic Party is the anti-Russia party who's going to defend our, alliances and support Ukraine. I mean, you can get on the list. Spending. Democrats spend a lot, but not as much as Donald Trump. He actually spent more.
Well, there's an Axios story today that the Trump plans would grow the deficit more than the Democratic plans were. Of course, all these things are very fuzzy. And if we have a divided Congress again, President Harris wouldn't pass a big spending plan. They'd meet in the middle and do something more modest, which is what happened.
This is not me making. Yeah, I'm not making the case for Kamala right now, but I do think that it's and I would imagine that if you were a Reagan Republican, you could cobble together like a decent, legitimate intellectual argument for supporting her. Whereas in the case of being a Democrat for Trump, I think it's like, we don't trust them. You have to be a little maybe conspiratorial. Conspiratorial, I guess.
I mean, it's what it comes down to. It's really conspiratorials versus normies. That's what this race is breaking down to.
That's what the normies want you to think. It's part of their conspiracy. That's a good segment. What else we got, Bill? Are we riding off into the sunset early? That wouldn't be a bad thing. What do you got?
I mean, there's debate over debates. I don't know if you think anyone's getting the upper hand here.
So right now the debate is over whether to mute the microphone. But I don't even know how much that matters. But I'll say personally, I'm okay. I'm okay either way. But muting, I'm probably leaning toward mute it. Even though I know, Trump. If you're rooting against Trump, then maybe it helps to let him sort of interrupt and go on, and maybe that sets her up for a good comeback line, making fun of him or something. But from an audience standpoint, I think I'd prefer the microphones muted.
So, I mean, obviously Harris is taking a different tack. They think that they saw the June debate and said, muting mics wasn't helpful for us, and they wanted to change that rule. And Trump, in trying to
muting mics was helpful for them because it got Joe Biden out of the race.
Fair enough.
That's the most helpful thing that could happen.
Fair enough. So Trump gave this answer where he said we should have the same rules, but I could have the mics on mute. It doesn't bother me, but we should have the same rules. So he's already given away the game that he doesn't really care. And may even prefer to be unfettered and not be hemmed in by advisors, which he's already complained about in truth of consciousness ranting multiple times in the past few weeks. So it's so much easier now for the Harris campaign to say this is a non-negotiable for us, and we know you'll cave on it because your candidate doesn't care.
Yeah.
And so Trump went on Truth Social yesterday saying, I have agreement with the radical left Democrats under the same rules. I mean, I can't believe the media keeps falling for this. If a candidate comes out with a statement by himself or by herself without the other candidate saying the same thing at the same time, it is not a real agreement. So we have this period for a few hours where there's this news headlines, we agreement for debates. It's not an agreement. They're still fighting over this thing. So I think Trump was trying to walk back what he did in a kind of lame way, and the Harris campaign wasn't having it. And so I still suspect Trump's going to cave on this point soon enough, and then we'll have a debate on the 10th with unmuted mics.
All right, and we will be there. Well, not there. We will be here in the DMZ, covering it, talking about it. I don't know. Even probably speculating about what should or shouldn't happen before it even happens, because that's what we do. What do you say?
It sounds good. I'm around next week. I'm not taking any big Labor Day vacation plans. So whenever's good for you, I bet it's gonna be good for me.
All right, we will be there in the DMZ. Stay tuned, everybody. Follow us on Twitter at DMZ Show. Bill, Scher, always a pleasure.
Same here. Talk to you next week.